Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned, my name is Saurabh Gupta. Let me start with the legendary safe harbor. This is not legal advice. We don't represent Salesforce. We are Salesforce ISV partner, and this is our point of view. This presentation is for informational purposes only. We are not a law firm. Again, not legal advice. My name is Saurabh Gupta. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Compliance. I'm an ex-Salesforce enterprise architect, and I work for Cloud Compliance. We are a data security, privacy, and compliance ISV partner of Salesforce. And this is the gamut of products that we have. I'm based out of Chicago. So the agenda of our call today is to talk about what is the problem that we are trying to solve with data masking. Why do we need to worry about it? What's the business case around it? What's the process of data masking, and how can you do it for free? We'll give a little demo of how easy it is and some next steps of where you can get some more resources on it, and then any question and answers. There is a chat on this streaming, and you can definitely leave any Q&A that you have on the chat. So here goes. The challenge that we have is we have sensitive data in our Salesforce production environment. And when you create a partial or full copy sandbox, a lot or all of this information gets copied over. And that may include personally identifiable information, such as names, contact information, gender, orientation, address, things like that. It may also include sensitive data, such as business sensitive data, such as who do you sell to, how much do you sell it for, your price books, your products, your opportunities, your quotes. So there is a lot of that kind of information that is moving over. More importantly, if you are in a regulated industry, if you are a bank, a healthcare provider, an insurance organization, a travel agency, you may have a lot of sensitive information, social security numbers, credit cards, passports, all kind of data. And what happens is because of this refresh or creation of a new sandbox, all of this information has moved over. Even if you didn't do partial or full copy sandbox, even with a simple dev or dev pro sandbox, all your employee data is still getting moved over. If you have community users, they get moved over. So there is personal information that still goes in your dev and dev pro sandbox. The point is, when information moves from production into sandbox, it is moving into an environment that may actually be less secure, because a number of people who may not have access to production or have limited access may be admins in a sandbox. Traditionally, sandboxes tend to have less hardened security because you want your people to be able to experiment and try things out. So a straightforward way to protect this information is to make sure that it is masked. What that really means is that this data is no longer real information, but it is realistic information. And I'll explain that in a minute. However, what that does is, as this becomes non-real information in your sandbox, the risk around it from a data breach perspective is dramatically reduced. The ability to look at this and understand, from a compliance perspective, a legal perspective, a CISO's point of view, and even just from a regular perspective, this is much, much easier for everyone to breathe and goes, okay, now we can give people access. We don't have to worry about breach and impact of such activities. And this is the kind of green light you're looking for. Here is an example of what masked data looks when done well, right? So on the left, you see an unmasked record for Adam Sandler, and the masked record looks actually quite similar. This is not encrypted. This is not some jumbled up data that we've thrown in there. This is very realistic looking data. So you can use it for training. You can use it for change management. You can use it for testing. You can run a lot of different scenarios because, frankly, it is very realistic data. The other advantage of data masking is that it also takes into consideration your data skews. So if you have some object, let's say, contact, and you have a custom object associated with it, a child object that has 15,000 records for that contact, some transactions or something. You want to have that kind of data skew in your sandboxes because you may be doing performance and scale type testing. So data masking is a much superior option than trying to, generate artificial data and stick it in your sandboxes. What are other reasons to bother with data masking? The fundamental thing that has happened with COVID and with data transformation initiatives everywhere is that we are amassing a ton of data, and it is becoming more and more attractive for state sponsored actors, for hackers, for malware, for disgruntled employees. So this larger data footprint is means that we have a bigger risk. The other aspect of this is as you apply more automated technologies from a build perspective. So if you do continuous integration, continuous deployment, or do DevOps with tools like Copado and all the other tools that exist, you want to make sure that the DevSecOps aspect of it, which is the security around DevOps, is taken into consideration. You want to make sure that you are able to mask this data in addition to your metadata migration and other CI/CD things. The second reason is we are all working from home because of COVID. Like if you work for an organization that wasn't having cross-border employee access, they may now have it now, right? Because people are driving, people are traveling, people are working remotely from everywhere. And all of these folks have access to dev and non-prod environments. So if you have real data in non-prod environments, it may now be accessible in more places than you would have liked to, in terms of here's a secured premise and you just sit here and use things. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a ton of internal factors, whether it's vulnerabilities, unpatched laptops, keystroke loggers, maybe some errors in some systems. Typically, when you have sandboxes, if you don't update their remote site URL and other things, they may be connecting back to a production system. I know of a ton of customers where they have accidentally sent out emails from their dev sandboxes to real customers. That is a problem. And in addition, you may have people who are just disgruntled workers. So a lot of internal factors are also a significantly important reason to ensure that your data masking strategy is sound and your sandbox data is always protected. In addition, there are external factors like I was mentioning earlier. And finally, there is a ton of new regulatory requirements in addition to the ones that already exist. So GDPR does require all of us to use the best of breed technologies available to safeguard our customers' data. A number of new regulations that are coming out, particularly in the United States, are requiring better security controls. In the last 6 months, I think there's probably 7 or 8 states that have come out with their draft. Virginia just went live with CDPA. Utah has come out with some data security regulations of their own. I think state of Washington has, Oklahoma has, so on and so forth. And internationally also, Brazil's LGPD, India's PDPB. There is a whole groundswell of regulations, as you can see here. And the red ones, what you see, like Brazil, Canada, China, India, and US, there is constantly new stuff that's coming, or their current laws are getting revised. So this challenge of ensuring data security and privacy across the board is really profound, and your sandbox data masking is quite vital in this aspect. So how does this process look like? Really, what tends to happen is you could run a data masking, and I'm talking specifically we are a product company, and our product is called Data Masker. So Cloud Compliance Data Masker, you could run it manually. You could run it from Apex so that it automatically runs, or you could even trigger it from a CI/CD tool. So if you use Copado, Jenkins, Flowsum, AutoRabbit, GearSet, or anything else, anything that can invoke a REST API endpoint can call our tool, and Data Masker would automatically start doing masking as soon as your sandboxes are created or refreshed. As part of this data masking, what exactly do we do? You have the ability to configure it very declaratively and tell data masker to mask or delete sensitive data. You can tell data masker to remove files, chatter, tasks, and others. And you can also, data masker when it runs will also prevent accidents by muting automation. Finally, let's talk about the post refresh automation. So once data masker is done doing all your masking, you can also utilize it to update your remote site settings. This is one of the issues that almost always comes up, especially if you have a lot of integration and a sophisticated sandbox and a production implementation. You may have remote site settings that are pointing to your other non-Salesforce production servers, and these sandboxes are also now pointing to them. So if you have a flow or a process or something, or a workflow that's going to make an outbound HTTP call, those calls are now getting made to an actual production system. And we can update that with Data Masker. So that way you can update it to dev endpoints. You can do that for user emails and remove the dot invalid for specific users that you want to give access without doing it manually. And you can also update other settings such as custom labels and metadata. This is very exciting. We are adding more in this space. And finally, it's ready for use and you're notified for completion. So just one more slide and then we can kind of jump into the demo. Our features ensure that it is fast, flexible, and really you can be fearless and assured that you have a robust data security in your sandbox. Data Masker is a very clicks, not code kind of product, which means it's declarative and you can really just install it and use it in less than 30 minutes. Data Masker comes with pre-configured mappings for lead and contact. You can add others. You can add your custom objects, managed package objects, anything that you like. And if you don't like contact leads, you can delete them, create your own. Really easy to do, and I'll show you in a minute. You can anonymize it your way. So if you want to mask records, you can. If you want them to use a regex, if you want to use a custom list, you can apply that. A great use case is if you are global and you want to mask data, but you want to follow certain nuance, like Chinese or Japanese names or some other such cultural or local specific nuances, you can apply those in your masking so that the data is relevant, is appropriately available for training in those locales. Data maskers also is very capable in terms of what records it will mask. So you can apply a where clause type filter, and essentially you can tell data masker what records to mask. A great example is if you have contact records and maybe the contact record type is customer x customer, right? And you want to mask customer records and you want to do a different treatment to X customer, maybe delete them. You can do those kind of things with Data Masker. And you have full control over deletion of files, attachments, case records, chatter feed, field history, all of that. So extremely robust capabilities to make sure that anything that doesn't need to be in your sandboxes, particularly unstructured data, we can make sure that it's not there. From a reporting perspective, Data Masker shows you how many records were masked. If there is an error, it will show you that. You can again rerun it for just the errored records. So there is a lot of flexibility. We run up to 5 batch jobs in parallel for masking, which is the most Salesforce would allow. And what that does is it can process a lot of records in parallel. One of the things we do is you can actually make sure that these 5 jobs are against the same object. If you have a large data volume object, right, like a contact or lead or tasks or whatever, and you'd like to just get through that quickly, you can utilize Data Masker to do 5 parallel processes. And that way, if you have tens of millions of records or something, you can dramatically reduce the amount of time it'll take to mask it. Again, it's a 100% native product built entirely on Salesforce. It's an app exchange. So your data never leaves the ecosystem. We never get to see it. Frankly, we don't want to see it. And this ensures that there is no sort of leaky hole anywhere. We don't make any outbound HTTP calls. It's completely self-contained managed package app. And to make sure that while it's running, both from a performance perspective and also to prevent any accidents that may accidentally send out emails and such, we will mute triggers, workflows, process builders, things like that. And then we basically disable them when data masker starts, and then we re-enable them once it's done. So it's just for the duration of masking that your automation is muted, and then it is unmuted. With that, just the last slide before we jump to the demo, you can download a data masker from App Exchange. We've recently released it. It's a free app. It is 5-star rated. So definitely give it a whirl. Really simple to use. In less than 30 minutes, you would be up and running. There is a PDF for install associated with this, and we're working on adding a lot more training material. If there are questions on this, I'd love to kind of hear from you guys. And this is a bit.ly URL for that, bit.ly/sandbox masker, all lowercase. Bit.ly is apparently case sensitive. So that's it. Let's take a look at the product itself. All right. So here we are in Data Masker. Let's start from the first page itself. So when you install Data Masker, you will see some of these tabs. A notable one is configuration. Data Masker ships with a sample configuration, just so that it gives you that flavor, and you can definitely make changes to it. So think of configuration here as the end state of your sandbox. This is where we tell Data Masker what does it need to do for sandbox. Let's edit this one for a minute. So what you will see here is that with Data Masker, we can tell it to go and delete attachments and files or notes or chatter or whatever. I'm going to just make some changes here. So I can tell Data Masker what to delete, and it'll just do that. I can also notify people if I want. I can activate specific people and remove the .invalid, do those kind of things, right? So this is the base settings of what we want Data Masker to do. And then what we'll do is take a look at the object masking here. And what we are doing here in the object masking is we are telling Data Masker what do we want to mask, what objects, right? So you can see here it's got a bunch of them. I removed a bunch of the other ones, but I still have lead. So let's go take a look at the lead object. So I can mask lead, or I can create a new mapping there in configuration for any other object. And what you will see here is that essentially Data Masker can take a filter criteria. So it's like the where clause of a SOCL. And I can say, mask all leads where last modified is, greater than 2 years or something. So in all old leads, I can mask or I can delete. Same with contacts or any other object that I choose. Once I've done that, then on this object, I can add new fields. And that's really simple. As you'll see, it's all completely declarative. You essentially select what you want to do, erase or replace. Let's say I want to replace. Then you specify how do you want to replace it, right? Do you want to put a hard-coded value, some pattern or something? I'm just going to pick pattern here. And then it'll ask you what field do you want to do it for, right? So you just come here and pick the field that you're interested in. Really easy. I'm just going to go down, find like maybe a phone number or something. Oh, there's mobile phone, right? So I've just picked phone, and then it'll, if you pick and Data Masker has the intelligence to understand you picked a phone type field. So it'll show me the 2 patterns it has. And you can add more patterns if you need to. I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick phone number USA and save it. And really, it's as simple as this. What happens now is once this Data Masker will run, it will look at these 3 fields and it'll update them. It'll update the emails with this email library, the fax, and the mobile phone. So all these libraries are in Data Masker's pattern here. And let me actually go to this tab here. And what you'll see is that there is a whole bunch of these libraries. And as you can see, there is first name, female, male, things like that. So this is where if you want to create your own, you effectively can. You can create local or culture specific names. You can add products if you have digital goods and you want to have only a sample of credit card numbers or some other gift card numbers that you want in your masking because you're testing with those numbers, you can create your own patterns here, and then you can apply for masking. So once you have done all of this, it's really simple. I can come back here to my configuration and I can just run it from here. I just click this data masking button and data masker will ask me a few questions and it will begin executing. So in this case, I can specify mask all, which means all the objects that I have, it'll run for all of them. I can also do mask specific if I only want to run for specific objects in the mapping that I have. And if there was an error, I can rerun it only for the error records. The point of me showing you this is that there is an incredible amount of flexibility, and we have tried to work really hard to make sure that it is quite simple for people to use. So here we'll just say mask all, you hit next, it'll say, is that what you want to do? And you can hit next. And essentially at that point, it'll basically run the bad job for masking. And the way this looks is, and I'm going to really quickly show you something that's running. So you can see it's running. It identified 1,000 records. It's already processed 400. Usually the performance is pretty good, but in sandboxes, you really can't guarantee performance. So, some depending on how much bandwidth Salesforce provides to that sandbox at a given time, it may take a while. But as you can see, if I go to this guy, you'll see that it'll show us an updated version of this performance. Oh, it's already done. And you can see it was trying to delete a file, which it can't delete because it was referenced by something. But if you look at these records, lead records, it looks like it masked all 1004 of it. So if at this point I go to lead, and I know we didn't pick a lot of different things on lead, but what you'll see here on lead is that the phone numbers have been changed, the email address have been updated with masker.com, and you could have selected a different email pattern if you wanted, and so on. And I can actually do that across the board for leads, for contacts, for orders, quotes, custom objects, and anything else. So it's really as simple as that to use this product. All you need to do is go here. It's free, so you can get it. And the installation takes a few minutes. There is one or two we use a permission set, so you have to assign that. And essentially, then you're good to go. There is an installation guide here that is pretty nifty, tells you everything that you need to do, really just a few pages of it. Really simple, screenshot by screenshot. In really 5-10 minutes, you're done. You can then just go configure it, and then you can run it and make sure that the data in your sandbox is secure. Eventually, the idea would be that you install it in production and configure it so that every time you create a full or a partial copy sandbox, all of this configuration moves over to your sandbox, so you don't have to repeat it. And then you can just manually run it, or you can automate it through your CI/CD tool or through some Apex, which is also not that difficult. It's just a few lines of code which we document. So that's really it on this. Let me go take a look at our deck, see if there was anything else. Really nothing, just question and answer. Let me see if there are any Q&A on the Vimeo live here. It is not showing me. Let me see if there's somebody else. Oh, there's a chat button here. Sorry, I'm new to Vimeo Live. All right. Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rahul. I'm not seeing any question and answers here. But if you have Q&A, Vimeo will push this directly onto LinkedIn. Please leave comments on on that LinkedIn post or reach out to me directly. I'm Saurabh Gupta, and this is for Cloud Compliance. If you have any additional information that you would like to find out about us, we are on cloudcompliance.app. That's .app at the end. And you can find out all about our products, Data Masker, and all the other wonderful things we do. And this is the page for Data Masker. You can get a lot of information on our capabilities and all the things that we just briefly talked about here. So thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hearing from you on how Data Masker can solve problems for you, and if you have any questions for us. Take care and have a good weekend.